tragedy, an inevitable part of life. Sometimes we're not sure how we're even going to deal with something until it happens, or something so unexpected happens. There's no preparing for it either way. I recall many years ago, I was in a bit of a slump. Was another low point for me at the time, down at Arizona, doing the flea market shows. Remember looking around and seeing they had a booth for concealed weapons permit, and started thinking again about getting a gun and just finishing it all. I was wandering around for like 2 weeks, beating around in my head and trying to figure out how to make this work and see if I was in the right mindset to actually go through with it this time. I got out of my trailer in the morning and I'm just walking to work. But as soon as I had locked my door to go start my half-mile walk to work, heard this big bang, and I'm only about maybe 600 feet something from a major interstate, and there's endless semis back and forth, so it's very common to have blowouts. This is middle of January, so I kind of stay in a rock and gem show next to the flea market show I walk to, and I'm back about maybe eight, 9 rows of tents and RV trailers. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that layer of obstructions in between me and the highway dampen the noise substantially with each row, when it's full, of course. So it was kind of loud for a blowout, being back that far, like it's about 8 rows of tents and trailers. It's generally you don't hear very much. Well, like, okay, didn't think much of it. Continued on to work and kind of slumped my way through the first couple hours. I saw a buddy of mine, another rock vendor, at about, after a few hours, hey, how's it going? And he's like, oh, did you hear? Hear what? About Kenny. I was, what? Yeah, this morning he just took a rifle and blew his head off in the middle of the show. Like, what? This huge disbelief as I, little bit of shock to start, was like, wow, can't believe it. The 5 stages actually went really rapidly for me. It was only a few minutes in the denial stage. Then I hit the anger stage, which was probably different than most people. I was angry at him for not letting me know, because here I am searching to do almost the exact same thing, and he goes and does this, whereas I'm thinking, man, we could have done it together. And obviously, that only lasted about an hour or so, and then moved on to the bargaining stage, and it's like, well, what if? And what if? Stage 4 actually went even briefer, the depression stage. It's like, man, I can't believe it's. I feel bad for him. And selfishly, I felt bad for myself because like maybe that would have been my out too. And but thinking about him, it was like, oh, man, I can't believe why would he do this? Why would all this happen? It was brief because thinking about it, this man's health had gone down to nothing in less than a year. He'd lost the ability to do pretty much everything by just not taking care of himself. Through smoking, like endlessly drinking, and it's like not having good eating habits or really doing much of anything, kind of living in filth is like, it's intentionally just, I guess in retrospect, I can relate that it was just lack of caring about himself that would drive somebody to be like that, to the point where he can't even like close or open a booth, which means simply taking clamps and tarps off, hardly, by himself, or even walking around without having to stop and huff and puff, almost needing oxygen. And this is a rockhound mentality. These are people that, if they can't take care of themselves, that's pretty much all they have. They're not going to ask or even accept help from pretty much anybody else. And the idea of somebody taking care of them is extremely offensive. That and some other factors that had gone on that emotionally just crippled him at the time as well. It was within a year and a half, everything in his entire life, it just super dramatic. So when I started looking at that, the acceptance phase was pretty easy to come to. And was like, yeah, I understand why he did it. And even thinking about it, I understand why he did it the way he did, but that's no place in this story here. The best part of that, I suppose, is that he moved on to a better place. And that's what the acceptance is all about. Especially here in America, we look at death, and most cultures that are, within this country I've seen tend to look at it negatively. There are some, obviously, that will take it and, rejoice more and see it as a good thing, but a lot of what you'll see is going to be negativity. Be like, oh, it's over. It's it's bad. They think about the people left behind, and they think about how they're dealing and all this, and people don't always focus, or seem to focus, most people a lot less, on the positive aspects, that all this pain and suffering is over. They're on to a better place. They can not be suffering anymore. They can be happy. I'm reminded of back home now in the Philippines. It's like Halloween, for example. We celebrate in America mostly with, it's candy and walking around or whatever. And, it's like just a big holiday. Over there, though, it's a celebration of the dead. I spent Halloween over there once and got to go with my fiance to the cemetery and light a candle for her expired relatives. So it's pretty cool to see different perspectives. Growing up, I thought it was a depressing tragedy, but in other countries, it's a party. It's a celebration of life. The moving on to the next stage. Don't lament the passing. Rejoice in what was. Just because the body's no longer there doesn't mean they can't live on. Even if you're not religious, they live on in your mind. You keep them alive with their memories. I think this is a more important way to go. While inadvertently, this event also came at a timely enough area to save me from the same demise. It seems to have happened many times. It's always like some miracle or something else just happens that right when I'm at that point, just something crazy happens that'll like pivot and get me away from it. And this is why I also feel I agree there's a greater power that is trying to say we are all predestined for something. It doesn't mean you can't figure out what you want to do. It just means you're not ready to leave yet. So there's still some greatness to be done. Just a matter of finding out what it was. Don't let tragedy get you down. Push through it and find the good in it. Or at least learn to accept